Welcome back, everybody, to our international show. Our destination, however, is not international. It is somewhere that is not on a physical map, so full speed ahead. Artist Journal, September 19th, 2023, broadcasting to the world and around the world from a quiet apartment in Friedrichshain in Berlin, Germany. Stop by the city, give me a shout. My name is Adrian Pocobelli, and welcome back. Look at this brilliant work of art here by Karim Safa, this self-portrait, this pixel art portrait, this pixel art factory turned into a human head. And it is brilliant. Of course, Karim is the pioneer of the pixel art factory, as far as I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there, but I believe Karim is kind of the original of this whole, it's almost a genre. And here you see the innovation that Karim brings with this beautiful incorporation of 1-bit video. Look at this, of these blinking eyes, which is also a brilliant move. I mean, these closed eyes, again, we're bringing us back to, I think there's I couldn't find it. Actually, I looked for it. There is a portrait, I thought, by Magritte of the surrealists, and it's like a photo portrait. There's little photos around, and in the middle, I think there was a nude, and like a painted nude, if I'm not mistaken, and all of the surrealists have their eyes closed, a homage to inner vision, right? And here, this is why, like, one of the things, and maybe it was accidental, maybe not, but I just think for me, when I see the blinking eyes here, it's like the blinking, the closed eyes is all of a sudden we're an inner vision. And all of a sudden this portrait is basically, Karim transmuted through the alchemy of the imagination here. These pixel art, look at this hair, this quote unquote hair, these, circulating squares made of spaced out pixels. This flag here, KS, Karim Safa. And you see, I was looking at this work and, it's only by talking about it, this journaling of sorts. I see the power of journaling when I do this. Our whole conversation yesterday on inspiration, had I not been journaling, video journaling, I don't think that would have come out. And now I'm thinking, has that changed the way I see art in general and its function, personally? I don't know, but it's kind of raised some interesting questions. So continuing on, going through this work, all of a sudden you see stuff like this, what look like projectors here, which turn into the eyes. This looks like these, light projecting over here. And then you see this little cube that kind of goes back and forth, almost like the thoughts of the person, of Karim, and then the nose, which is almost breathing, circulating air into this beautiful mouth here. And everything, and even here, this kind of balloon breathing, just brilliant. And look at even the innovation here, not just with incorporating seamlessly 1-bit video into this pixel art factory, into this portrait, but then you get this innovation with the moving pipe. It's almost like a little glitch, and quite brilliantly done with the pixel shooing off at the end into 3-dimensional space. I mean, just incredible. Breathing away. Just brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. It has a very modern feel. I think a Raoul Haussmann. There was another work that it totally reminded me, of course, is Salvador Dali's portrait of Mae West as an apartment. This is at the Art Institute of Chicago, a very famous collage. And, it's such a good reproduction here that it looks like this is marker, but it's probably gouache. Of course, this is Dali, and collage here. And, the part that really it seems to share with is these frames for eyes, where the eyes are. And here, another solution, very surreal. Again, that blinking eye, those closed eyes. The drama of this work is brilliant. And by the way, it's going for 500 Tezos. The market is definitely recognizing it. It's got 3 bids already. It started at 20 by people of Tezos, and Matau definitely wants it. And it is currently at 500 Tezos with like 13 hours to go. So it'll be interesting to see what this goes for. Beautiful, brilliant brilliant work. And here are some of the others. I think there's something like 28 that have been minted. So you see here Empress Trash, Flexosaurus, Rosaceo. We're going to take a close look quickly at Rosaceos as well. But they're all just awesome, and take a look at them. They're one of ones across the board here. You see how many have been minted. So I think they were saying, people of Tezos was saying this is season 9, Blue Retina, Alexandra. So Marina Amadova. So too many to mention here and to go through everything. So just check it out. 27 active auctions, people of Tezos on Object. Here also is Rosaceo. I haven't seen from Rosaceo for a while, so I thought I would just quickly show this one as well. What is Rosaceo? We've looked at a lot of Rosaceo's work, so how is Rosaceo doing the self-portrait? And here it is an eye in the middle here. Back to the eye as a portrait. Again, almost we're back to this kind of inner space, the eye, the window of the soul, as they say, where kind of inner meets outer, as we think of, J.G. Ballard's definition of surrealism, where inner and outer space meet and fuse, and they meet at the eye, don't they? If you disagree, feel free to leave a comment. So very cool work there. That's at auction for 85 Tezos. So continuing on, Cableen. I'm thrilled to announce that Cableen is going to be our guest on this week's Spaces with Runetune. So don't miss that. I have just pinned this up on my feed here, and it should be a great discussion. Cableen has a wonderful Twitter feed where she posts tons of artwork. It should be great, and I'm totally looking forward, and I'm thrilled that she agreed to come on. So do check that out. We have some comments on yesterday's episode. Thank you for the comments. Kyle Flemmer, your show definitely feeds into my daily inspiration. I appreciate that. And, when I was in university and I was taking a lot of kind of Greek classics as they weren't my main degree, but I was taking a lot of classics as, what do you call them? Not options, but all to say, inspiration kind of was becoming, I was almost wanting to become an expert on this topic. I think of Plato's Phaedrus, where there's the 4 forms of divine madness, and which we should actually bring up, but maybe not this episode because I have way too much to do and I'm way behind schedule. But let's put that on the shelf and let's revisit this topic of inspiration. Again, the power of journaling, as I was just mentioning there with Kareem's work, I don't think I would have had the thoughts that I had yesterday on inspiration. And are we almost just transferring inspiration between each other through art? It's kind of an interesting question for me that I don't really have a fast answer to. And I guess I never would have come to that without journaling. And so for me, I'm like, oh, maybe this is the power of journaling. This is a video journal, of course, but people always talk about how good journaling is for you. I guess the reason why is because you're coming to thoughts that you might never had without the act of journaling. It forces you to organize reality and re-explain it to yourself, right? So, and in that process, you come to maybe a further conclusion and a more crystallized conclusion, and you have new thoughts that you may not have had otherwise. Just quickly here, it's a real treat to see what artists are doing almost in real time, and to get your thoughts on the work and scene as they grow and change. Thanks for sharing my art again. Of course, Kyle did those beautiful pixel artworks. The Little Intimacy series you mentioned are close-ups of my earlier artworks. I've been airdropping them to collectors when the work they derive from sells out. That is a really fun idea. So doing a super close-up of your artwork and giving it as a treat. So almost like playing with the copy idea, but zooming in so close that it becomes a completely different work. Made as a small gesture of gratitude to my collectors and just a fun way to keep things circulating. That is a great idea. Marcel Muntianu, thank you for the comment, Kyle. Now I dive really deep into thoughts about how 25 years of our Meta Paris 1912 going to look like. Thank you for the best food for inspirational dreams. So I'm glad you guys like the inspirational topic. It did really well on Twitter. It really kind of went somewhere, that video. So thank you I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed that. And indeed, 25, what is this going to look like in 25 years? It'll probably be unrecognizable, but who knows? It'll probably seem like ancient history, what we're doing here today, interestingly. Just as we look at even 2019, it feels like ancient history. What about 25 years from now? Human Boy, great show as always. Excited to see how the space will look in 25 years and how our art will evolve with it. Indeed. I kind of feel like a lot of us are ready to be here for 25 years. Interestingly, Salieri, great show, always showing great and super interesting works. Thanks, Adrian. The show is culture. Thank you, Salieri. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Your passion is contagious. Thank you, Santiago. Is it Codal and Retro Manny? People, yeah, this 25-year comment really resonated. What you said, what is 25 years of this going to look like? I nearly fell off my chair. I joke, but seriously, it's unfathomable when you factor in technological advancements, political landscape, and how already interconnected we are both online and on some level metaphysically. Also, what number Art Journal will be on by then? And will we literally be and legally be able actually to board your private ship of the mind? Well, I always joke, semi-joke, that the ticket to the pirate ship is actually in Ed Morola's feed there. They're selling for 1 Tezos each. There's an edition of 200. That is a joke. And there may be nothing that ever happens with that. But it's kind of a fun idea. So just so you know, if there is a private ship, yeah. And again, I kind of grew up with Greek philosophy at the core, or at least in university. I didn't grow up with it, but at least in university, it had a very deep, Socrates. I was just watching, a lecture on the Peloponnesian War this morning. Yeah, so this, and again, I was mentioning, Socrates wasn't actually very at least he wasn't for democracy politically, but in terms of socially and in conversation was very democratic. So I don't know if there will ever be a private ship. But it's interesting. It kind of brings up the whole monetization discussion again, doesn't it? Which I'm in no rush to figure out. We're having a great time here, but yeah, so it's an interesting question. Let's see where it goes. Maybe I'll want to cash in at some point, but I'm just having fun right now, and that'll be great. 3rd or 4th generation. Yeah, interesting. I'm discussing the 2nd generation of digital art. Maybe it is the 3rd or 4th generation. That it's a fair comment. In a sense, the breakthrough comment, I think, is this idea that maybe there's more than one generation of digital art, because generally when we think of digital art, we kind of think, oh, this is new, and even if it's from the 1950s or 60s, right? So yeah, I think this is a legitimate idea. Like, maybe you're right. I think it's a interesting conversation. This is also a very interesting comment here. Getting started in this blockchain art space is intimidating. So this is actual CT. I have no idea where to even start, so I just continue to make art and watch some YouTube vids, but most seem kind of sketchy, to be honest. Yes, welcome to the crypto scene. If you ever plan to do an intro to this blockchain art world class, I'd sign up. Loving the show. Well, thank you very much. And, this is probably, back to the monetization idea. I don't know if I do it with blockchain, but maybe weird kind of classes of sorts. Perhaps maybe that's way, and maybe even doing something like this, how to set yourself on the blockchain. I don't know. Let's see. But thank you. And if I ever do, I will definitely announce it here. So yeah, interesting ideas. Thank you for all the comments. We heard from Cap'n. Hey, Pocobelli, thanks a lot for today's feature. So of course, Cap'n made this beautiful artwork here. And we learned more about it. I've been learning to use another retro software called ZX Paintbrush. So this is the power of digging up old softwares and finding these very obscure paint programs, because remember Figments? Figments was mostly the result of another retro software, I believe, that Cap'n had found and then put it into GIMP for animation. So here's another one, ZX Paintbrush. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. All the recent abstract pieces come from experiments while learning what each tool does. And maybe that's why they're so great. It's like you're not even trying, and maybe that's why they feel so great. And it does have some limitations, such as the little red dots that splash, these dots here. That's because the color made works on sections here and not pixel by pixel. So interesting. So it's almost like you put the color all in a certain section. So appreciate it. Thank you, Cap'n. I appreciate the feedback. And look, Cap'n has made a cover to La Isla de Taylor Voy. And I don't want to play too much, but you can, let me stop it just for copyright reasons, but just to give you an idea. And here, look at how beautiful this is. So Cap'n is doing album art too, and it's pretty rad. And this contrast here between the pixel art and this kind of script here, this almost calligraphic script here is beautiful. Nice contrast, nice color contrast there too. Beautiful design. Yuri J. So we were discussing Yuri J. reusing layers, basically, or elements. Always grateful for the featuring. This is my take on the legitimacy of the practice of reusing elements. But to be honest, transition series will be less repetitive since I'm not that young already to scandalize like this. And this is the reaction. So I believe it was another collector. By the way, you want to keep all these with the same base structure? Who can stop me? And at the end of the day, it really is the artist's decision how they want to do it. And like there are artists who have made, like, I can't remember her name, probably someone out there does, like who, and it was, she would do these fake Warhols, and they're basically made to look exactly like Andy Warhol work. And so that was kind of the thing. Like, it's just, so contemporary art, in a sense, like, this is pretty tame, just reusing some elements and then trying different versions. Again, it's similar using Warhol as the example. Should Warhol only be able to make one screen print? Or can he make 10,000 different Elvises, right? Paintings of Elvis. And so the logic of digital art is almost demanding us to do things like this, to remix. So yeah, so interesting. Who can stop me? That is Yuri J's response. Ugo has a response to the comments yesterday. The conversation continues here. In his video, Adrian states that it's already done. Yeah, now, let's keep going here. And I agree with that. However, I feel that there's still a long way to go for many artists, including myself. So we were discussing, Ugo was saying, if we hang on here, this could turn into a real art movement. And I was basically saying this already is an art movement. It just hasn't been recognized, is maybe what I would add today. It's probably recognized among, some people on the blockchain scene, maybe a few people out there, but it's to your point here. It's true that very few artists from the Tezos community have made it big on the global art scene. And that's true. I often ask, like, when Cap'n was on the show, or just various artists, I think Ed Marola, like, have you ever been approached by galleries? No, like not even small galleries, right? So this is very true. It's true that very few artists from the Tezos community have made it big on the global art scene. And that's what I'm referring to. So we're totally in agreement, actually. In any case, I want to thank you for your comment in your video, Pocobelli. It's always a daily pleasure to follow you on YouTube. I totally appreciate that. And I think we are actually pretty much agreed here. And yeah, I'd say we're just in the middle of it. Like, if anything, it's maybe like, I don't know, I was going to say 1922, or shall we say 1923? I think we're in the middle of it. There's probably a couple of decades left in this. If the world doesn't blow up, I could see there being a couple of decades. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a couple of years. Everything goes so much faster now. Maybe it all just, but it kind of feels like we're in the middle of something very important, doesn't it? And to me, this is, I don't want to call it a feature rather than a bug, but in a sense, the way I'd put it is, this is for the global art scene to fix, not us, and I'm happy with that. I've always said here, I don't mind small. Small is fun and kind of magical. And, it'll be seen, if should this blow up, and it may not, it'll be seen as a very magical time when there's a few thousand people paying attention. A couple of thousand people, 3,000. This was fascinating. Speaking of, thank you for the comment, Ugo. This is fascinating. Speaking of the comment on the global art scene. So Armory Week, which is based on the Armory Fair out of New York. Now they do these fairs have gotten so huge that they have satellite fairs that go around. I can't remember what the Association of there are satellite fairs. So now they just call it Armory Week or Miami Art Week or whatever, Art Basel Miami Week or whatever it is, and there will literally be like 14 other fairs that spring up around these kind of massive fairs like Armory or Art Basel. So Katya Kazakina, the art detective here, has posted some of her latest article, and it's quite fascinating on the global art scene. Armory Weeks, or what I'd be the contemporary art scene is what I'd be tempted to call it. Maybe it's global art scene. Let's see. Armory Week's lackluster commerce wasn't happy news for the art market, but the real test is yet to come. So we've been commenting on this, I think, since May, when we saw auctions were starting to go kind of flat, and where there was actually a panic where they were actually calling people up to bring people to bid. I don't know if it was a Christie's or a Sotheby's auction. I think it was a Christie's one. And ever since then, it was like this crisis in confidence in the market. There are still this kind of ripple effects. Despite the New York Fair's effort to put on a brave face, quiet aisles and slow sales were notable across the city. So how was business at Armory Week in New York really? As the art world rushes from event to event, driven by a mix of FOMO and transactional fervor, it can be hard to discern what's actually happening on the ground in real time. The spin is thick, the stakes are high, and the next trade show is already on the horizon, not to mention the upcoming auction for this $120 million Picasso from the Emily Fisher Lauder collection. But this is where I want to go. There's no denying it. Things have changed. The pandemic art boom is over, even as the virus is back with a new strain. The first day reports of brisk sales, our own included, were somewhat inconclusive. In fact, the Armory Show exhibitors reported so few sales over the course of the week that ArtNet News regular price check roundup of fair transactions had to be shelved this time around. So normally at this time of year at this fair, they would have all these price checks and everything. So few works are selling that they couldn't even do their price check and see what things are selling for. Was this because of the savvy publicity generating mega galleries armed to the teeth with PR teams opted not to participate in the fair, while the smaller galleries that did aren't liable to telegraph their sales to the larger media? So all to say, this is also I want to highlight here. Collectors and advisors had to juggle art events with their children's back-to-school frenzies, not to mention post-vacations jet lag. The congested schedule translated into fairly unpopulated aisles and, not surprisingly, slower sales. This, at least, is the consensus of the market professionals the art detective spoke to for this column. And we have a quote. "It didn't feel urgent," said Alex Glober, the recently elected president of the Association of Professional Art Advisors. There wasn't the velocity of sales. There weren't that many compelling works you felt like you had to rush over and buy. And my friends, I think this is actually the main issue. I think the energy is actually in the digital art market from just a purely art perspective, not from a recognition perspective, not from a market perspective. Our works sell for $1. Oftentimes, this beautiful work we started with by Kareem Safa is now like $300. I mean, that probably buys you a ticket and a meal at the Armory Show, right? So, the market, but just from an energy standpoint, I think that's a very significant thing. People are not feeling compelled to buy these works, and so all just very interesting, isn't it? So there is an article, and also Katya Kazakina with a preview of a Wade Guyton show. And I got to speed through this episode here. So he's back, Wade Guyton's first solo show at Matthew Marks Gallery in New York City, opening tomorrow. Now, here is some contemporary art that is definitely exciting, though. And I'm sure if you had these at Armory, they'd be flying out the door. Of course, Wade Guyton uses a printer to make these works. And yeah, I mean, here, look at this beautiful cover of the New York Times. We've talked about Wade Guyton here before. I was almost tempted to start the show with Wade Guyton, this work here, but Kareem Safa stole the show there. And so, again, printing, traveling through the mediums, what I'd argue is the main theme of contemporary art in the last 30 years, maybe since Warhol, the late Warhol, I would argue. Look at this. You see drips, but printed. So it's like, in a sense, prints of paint to a certain degree. And so cool installation. I mean, weird installation. I'd almost go so far as to say, see this? Not painted, but printed. So again, a photograph, first painted, then photographed, then printed. Okay. Traveling through the mediums, and quite beautiful here. So Wade Guyton in New York, shout out to Runetune. You should go check that out. Since you are there, and everybody else, Clown Vamp also in New York. Cableen, don't hesitate to go to Gallery Data if you're in Paris. So we have New York here. I guess that's not digital here, but here, at least NFT digital. And here we have gallery data, where you have Loacme and Simon Lazarus 84. So you see some digital art here in Paris. Interesting aspect ratio. They're not going with the 16:9, interestingly, because it's a difficult size to make things work. So very interesting. You can get, I've been looking at different screens on Amazon. You can get different size screens, and here in Tokyo. So Paris, Tokyo, and here you can see this is the Decentral show here. So truly global, as we all know. Let's just look here. Just arrived at DecentralCon, and DecentralCon is in Tokyo. September 19th to 20th, largest multi-chain Web3 community facilitator. So just very cool here. Continuing on, Quampa. And we remember, like, got to speed through this show here, but Quampa makes these beautiful works here, of course, on Microsoft Paint, and I thought had been doing it for years, but look at this. GM, this is the first piece I made on Paint on January 12th this year. So this was the first work by Quampa in Microsoft Paint, and now you see these incredible... So as far as I understand, this series that has dazzled us over here and around Twitter and the internet, this was only started, this series, in January. And here we are only in September. So that is pretty amazing from Quampa there. And Walk, private collection. So there, we saw the Bugs Bunny, and here is, looks like maybe Jerry from Tom and Jerry. So just more brilliance. Love the interpretations here. Really just, the Bugs Bunny was brilliant, wasn't it? So another really cool work. So into the art we go. Here's the myth. Muhammad Ali, mysterious title. So you see the boxing glove here, but here we see Tupac, and here we see, you know, a Michael Jordan shirt, and they're a basketball, and they're LA and New York, LA Dodgers and New York Yankee caps. Perhaps that's a Gucci belt, and there is the myth. So almost the myth as all of the myth's heroes fused together, perhaps. So almost like a spiritual ideal of sorts, and almost, there was a myth that came out recently where it's like the tragedy and comedy masks, almost kind of feeling like that way here. So super mysterious, enigmatic work from the myth. It sold out at 25 Tezos very quickly, within basically a couple hours. So that was, or I guess a little by the next morning here at 25 Tezos, edition of 15. So very interesting kind of halo or just aura around each of these figures too. Kappa Sage, Devil's Advocate. So another work of mayhem here, also using a lot of pop culture references. We see Cause, we see McDonald's here, and interesting colors here, and also a machine gun, and interesting figures here, and almost reminiscent of that Wasteman Goldminovich work. So I'm not sure what the original reference is here with this jester. Interesting. Maybe they share a reference. And here, what looks like the Kappa Sage figure with the Apple Pencil and a laptop. So brilliant work here, and interesting outline of the trees. Edition of 3, Devil's Advocate, cool title, sold out at 12 Tezos, and 7 were burned by Kappa Sage. So keeping a very low edition. Rustic Digital Art, the Starman Space Sugar cereal. So playing, press start. So playing with the cereal box as a subject matter here, and also with video game lettering here. So just a very cool, also the picture in the picture with the spaceman here eating, with the astronaut eating cereal here. And there are the remote controls, the phones, interestingly, in the bowl. So it gets more and more mysterious. And here the astronaut is thinking about being in traffic. Approved by the Minister of Health. Made with 100% real, no fake meteoric dust. I missed my family. I wonder if this is almost like a portrait of the astronaut in space. And we see these great figures here too. Dreaming of back home in traffic, being back home in traffic. Edition of 10 for 10 Tezos each, 9 left. Cool work. Rinny Fish with a new work here. Just get the mic. And very fun. The figure here is skipping rope and kind of divided in half here with all the different little characters in this very beautiful kind of psychedelic pastels here. Just really cool. Dopamine Junction, interesting title. Daydreaming at the Junction of Emotions. We Ride on Stars, just beautiful poetic work here. Not listed yet. Or wait, transferred to Kujeb, who is the great, who I call the great Hasdrubal Waffle, or also known as D. Thibodeau. So that is cool. I'll look at Kota Nakazono with a new work here, and really interesting leaving that kind of Photoshop canvas open in the background and large pixelation here that Kota has been working with recently. And remember those lo-fi works we've been looking at recently, but this is super high res, this, biomorphic metallic structure here that is moving. So interesting work here, and the clouds, and interesting movement also in the background of these pixels. Nice kind of rhythm to this work, and a big paint splash there. Edition of 5, and this has sold out at 15 Tezos each. So nice low edition there too. Santiago with a new work, again experimenting with the abstracts. Fumes and volumes coming out of the taxi. Vector art from AI images. Interesting. So using AI images and turning them into vectors, it looks like vector art. So theoretically, this is infinitely scalable. And so again, pretty cool using Inkscape here, massive file, edition of 5, 20 Tezos, nice kind of cream yellow background. And again, another take on the abstract, on the abstract series that Santiago's been working on. The Isolationist with a cool work here. This is called Meister. And interesting portrait here. Sometimes the Isolationist will use physical work, but I think, but this looks pretty digital, doesn't it? And nice kind of textures here and everything, kind of a dark portrait, as Isolationist is wont to do, is often does. And this one's called Meister, and it looks like maybe Meister is written up there a couple of times in different kinds of writing. So interesting work that is selling for 20 Tezos, and that is on, that is selling for 99 Tezos on secondary, edition of 20, selling out at 37 Tezos very quickly. So within like 4 hours, it looks like, 6 hours. So nice work from Isolationist. Greco-Rando, Greco with a new work, White Horse. Interesting title, a 1 of 1 for 93 Tezos here. And here we see a figure whose eyes are looking up with a cigarette and some sort of stick in their hand, riding on a white horse. As is often said, the dictator does, to the strong person coming in to save the day when society is collapsing, riding on the white horse. Not sure if that would be related. Interesting painting, though. Brings up tons of questions. Beautifully painted jacket and beautifully painted horse. Love the hair in there as well as the sky background. Beautiful. Luxury Without Money is the series. So a 1 of 1 from Greco. PB Universal with an interesting work, very modern kind of subject matter here. These Nike, beach sandals, for lack of a better term. Interesting kind of collage looking work here with these big chunky, what look like pixels, but with texture in them. And then here you see other, beach sandals, with gradients. So just interesting work here from PB Universal, edition of 7 for 7 Tezos, and there are 3 left. Ezra Eslin, Say Cheese. So classic Ezra Eslin illustration, the classic break up the line style here. And of course, in content, also Ezra Eslin, cool kind of modern, someone taking a picture of a phone, and maybe here's the friend, usually kind of a violence in the work, but with humor. And so maybe the friend taking a picture with their murdered friend here. And here, this is, so an interesting work. So is this a photo Or is this... It's interesting how this looks like it should be someone taking a photo, but that's pointed up at the sky. So maybe there's more going on here than I understand. And a butterfly on the phone here. It's almost like someone taking a picture at the sky. But you know what this is? I just realized this is a selfie. This is a selfie. Wow. Brilliant. Dark and brilliant from Ezra Eslin. That is great. There are still 15 available. That one, it's complicated composition. Brilliant. Jake Studios. Again, the power of journaling, right? I don't think I would have figured that out if I didn't have to walk through it with you here. So just an interesting work here. I believe this is a 1 of 1 from Jake Studios. Interesting figure here getting kind of splashed with water or something, and then what looks like a water gun or something with red on the other side, maybe in a pool with this great texture here. And you see it here. Yeah, it looks like they're in the water floating. So having fun, I guess, in the summer. Bag by Geek, and it looks like some paraphernalia here. And just another interesting illustration that came out in the last 24 hours. Nice still life there. And that is selling for 3 Tezos. There are 7 left on primary. Louis Osborne with another kind of commentary of sorts here. Jumping for joy. So at first you see these happy or sad figures, and then they put a smile on as the main kind of leader here is forcing them to jump and be happy, but then they slowly become kind of unhappy again. So almost a commentary of sorts. Jumping for joy. Almost an ironic, it is an ironic title, edition of 50, selling for 12 Tezos, 16 left. So art is still selling over here in NFT land. A distant feeling. You know, people talk about how NFT sales have come down, but it would be interesting to see the comparison between, say, as we were seeing in that Armory show, and it's probably almost impossible to get these numbers, but the contemporary art or the global, the physical art scene, how it's coming down versus the NFT, art scene, and how much each is coming down. Because I still see a very strong market. And I think part of the reason is crypto has come down so much that collectors are just kind of like super excited. Those that still have liquidity, they're excited to buy. So they see huge deals. Again, look at what we opened the show with. A Distant Feeling by Sebastistaro. And maybe this was burned. There are 0 editions here, but beautiful, kind of interesting illustration as usual from this artist who we check in with every so often. Interesting coloring of the fingernails, and just a great composition as usual. Maybe they have a new version of this. Let us see here. No. So just burned and just showed up in my feed, unless it was relisted here. Then we will move on. September 18th, so just burned. Interesting piece. Smonter, another digital illustration. Smonter is playing with this new kind of rougher digital style, The Sorcerer's House. So always super interesting compositions from Smonter here. Here you see this kind of magician's library and great carpet, like just very original work, again, from Smonter. Even this, the tag of the shirt hanging out, and almost our protagonist here being, taken through this magician's house. Brilliant concept. So original. 1 Tezos, 67 cents. And there are 12 left on primary. Edmarola, SMLPFP. Small PFP, maybe. So another just original work here. Another improvisation by Edmarola. And here is a tiny PFP with a massive, beautiful textured frame here. And a beautifully pixelated textured frame. This is an edition of 16 for 5 Tezos on Object. And continuing on, Nov 1914, Las Islas. And here, another beautiful gradient work from Nev's son, kind of semi-abstract. Las Islas, I assume that means the island. Maybe this is an island, I'm not sure. So almost, it's looking pretty abstract, although there does seem to be some representation here. It's really riding the line. This is an edition of 3, and it sold out at 5 Tezos each. Continuing on, Ranixdeer, who could hang in the same room here. Element light with interesting kind of, feels like a slight shift here, especially with this addition of harder textures here on the left from Ranixdeer, and slightly different colors than we were seeing before. So more surrealist abstraction. from Ranixtier. Element Light, interesting title, a Tezos 70. And a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant work by Dan Control for this Next Wave collective or collection wave drop on Zora. So this is a free mint, and I brought it up big, like pretty nice work. This, a very cool kind of, again, semi-abstract work, working with the gradients. Quite brilliant. Waves. So it looks like waves crashing into a shore, almost like a vaguely like Hokusai's wave, vaguely, but just working with circular gradients. Quite brilliant. We have another one from that series, the Next Wave. What is it? The Wave Drop for the Next Wave Collective. This is called Island. This is, of course, Element Lee. So brilliant work here from Element Lee. Just an island, great color. Again, making it look really easy, instantly recognizable by Element Lee, and beautiful. Like, look at this beautiful water here, roughly done with the pixel art. Just great. This is also an open mint. So still lots of great mints on Zora here. And here's Ugo, who we were hearing from earlier in the show, and this great animation here. I don't think we've seen, maybe we saw this one yesterday. Beautiful animation here of someone surfing, the Wrangler, also part of this wave drop, and Datura, Beach Break, so also part of this drop. So you can collect them all basically for just the mint fees. So that is pretty cool. So Datura joining in the fun as well. Beach Break, cool title. And also mostwrongking.eth with a cool, pretty abstract work. This is called 111222. So all sorts of great work there. And also Demon Ego on Zora. I think we saw this on Twitter. I think we previewed it. So here it is again. Again, just a brilliant looking work. Mint for 0.02 ETH, and there are 20 available. And here you see the physical notebook. And again, incorporating physicality, physical work with digital, seemingly almost effortlessly. And a beautiful contrast, pretty bold by not putting any animation over top of the physical area. Great work. Semha, A Door to Nowhere. So we've seen this before, maybe a couple of weeks ago, the person, Semha, that does these great animations here. So here it appears to be a new one with a person and a door, kind of a metaphysical, cosmological, cosmic work. Another one here, Not a Number, with some new abstractions. It's on Teak, 1 of 1 for 10 Tezos. And so that is pretty cool. I wonder if Not a Number used programming, 1-bit shifting moire pattern, 119 frames, P5JS and GIMP. So probably, and would fit perfectly on a 16 by 9 TV. Nice piece, only 10 Tezos. Sean Luke with a new work, Connected Rooks Stronger Together. So playing with chess pieces here, animating them, and with a framing device here, and just some cool kind of textured digital texture, shall we say, moving through it. This is on Object, edition of 33, and is this sold out? And it is transferred to probably previous collectors. There's Haiti Rocket and more. Very cool. And of course, Kurt Hustle Collective with another DBO sports work with what seemed to be the Sumo Arcade series. This is an edition of 5 for 50 Tezos. This one's awesome as well. So just super cool. Again, incredible textures here, super rich. 50 Tezos, $33. Elby with some beautiful textures here too. Whirl in a Dream. So playing, again, probably my favorite Elby work is this ballerina, ballet dancer, I think it's called. So here are some other ballet dancers, 2 years later, with some beautiful noise on the side, some beautiful analog glitch. Interesting, almost looks like a video of a TV with this, here. So this is an edition of 5 for 10 Tezos. Kuro with a couple of really cool works here. This is going for only a Tezos, and this looks like it's called P-Lock Blocks. And it seems to be a series that go together. Here is one, and here is the other, P-Lock Waves, edition of 5. And maybe this is sold out. Let's just see. And sold out at 2 Tezos each. Marcel Munteanu, C21. So some experimentation going on here from Marcel Munteanu, who we recently saw with this work here, the awesome deluxe paint gradients. So here's some more experimentation, almost looking like medical imagery to a certain degree, especially in the top left there. Soulquake is the description. So pretty small file, edition of 5, and this is sold out at 3 Tezos. Dina Chang with a couple. And of course, Dina Chang has a Object 1 drop. I think it's today or tomorrow. Lorna Mills, Trapeze Dance. So we saw this, I think, on her Instagram, I believe, or maybe on Twitter. And here it has been released, this great work by Lorna Mills, edition of 32. There are 10 left at 20 Tezos. And here's another flower, Noise Bloom. So this is Ex Mortal, edition of 15. So these go really nice together. And continuing on, Elby with another work here. The same ghosts that keep me awake haunt your nights, just the same, edition of 15 for 5 Tezos. So a lot of really interesting textures coming out of the analog video glitch. Look at Renki. Obatake. Look at this. So pretty interesting, kind of powerful textured work here from Renki. Cool abstraction, and there is 10 available at 10 Tezos. And Mika Oladef with Drain, so a 1 of 1 for 250 Tezos, Paradox Proliferation, and a pretty interesting static glitch work. And here you seem to see a figure here, beautiful kind of textures and what I want to call splashes and pixelation of sorts. So nice and rough, nice and loose, as my friend would say. Post-render glitch, Drain Blender, processing, sonification. And I guess, yeah, so modeled and framed by Mika, post-render glitch by Drain. Sky Goodman with a cool pixelation here, a little bit less able to believe a landscape painting. I don't think we saw this yesterday. So a cool kind of recognizably Sky Goodman work, but here pixelated in low res. Edition of 9 for 9 Tezos, 3 left. Mason the Third with a 1 of 1 for 50 Tezos. And again, looking like we have some, the glitch ROM is now being processed through analog video, just in the textures that we're seeing across the blue here. So another ROM corruption and hex edit, Game Boy Color, Void Simulator. So pretty interesting, pretty abstract. Silva Santus with a couple of Nintendo glitch ROMs, dropping the gloves. So here, playing with a boxing game. And we have another one playing with war, Looming Conflict. So interesting, and there are tanks going across the landscape here. So interesting work here, Battle Tank, and this is selling for 50 Tezos cents, edition of 50, and there are 36 left. So very reasonably priced. Chaz, Office Desk. This is available for $5.49 on secondary edition of 10. And of course, Chaz has done many of these, the Tetris game, often at a 45-degree angle or at a diagonal. Here is a front-on work, and there is a phone. So interestingly, this retro kind of graphics, the retro computer, but then we have a phone inside of it that looks like it's ringing with a message. Interesting contrast. Continuing on. Another interesting pixel artwork. This is part of basepaint.xyz. So I just saw this on, I think it's RuneScape, Basescape. I'm not exactly sure what is going on here, but you see it's 40 of 99. You connect your wallet. I don't know too much about this, to be honest, but it looked interesting. And so here is the work that is associated with it. So if you want to learn more, maybe go to the Twitter just to make sure it's real. I assume it is. There are several profits will be shared among all artists based on their contribution. So not exactly sure what's going on here, but I thought it was interesting. And this was just something posted on Twitter, Simple Times by the Harvey Dean. This is from the Pixel Art account. And we'll see if there's any volume here. No volume. And here we see some kids in their bedroom and later at night with the storm playing video games. And then here in the morning, so the life of a kid in pixel art. Kind of moving and beautiful. Yeah, more video games, sleep, video games, sleep. Cool work. Ivan Ovmud. So this was bought and tweeted out by Strange Thing. I believe picked this up. So this is AI, which I didn't see at first. I was like, oh, that's a cool illustration. Then I looked closer. AI illustration. So isn't that interesting? And if we go to Ivan Ovmov's page, you might remember Ivan as the person that, remember these works? Where it's almost like the super textured, stitched AI works. Well, all these works here and really textured. So this is super interesting there. Nice one. The embroidered punk. That's brilliant. That's very brilliant. So here, playing with illustration. So new kind of techniques over here, seemingly. Neg AI, the canvas. Every canvas is a journey. Edition of 15. This is on secondary for 60 Tezos. Cool AI artwork here. And with this beautiful background, just a beautiful painting here, great dress, and the artist here working on a portrait of a traditional painting done with AI. So you gotta love the, I guess, the reflexive nature of the work and the content. Continuing on, Lily Illo, The Quiet, with a just really interesting portrait here. AI, look at that, and look at these great sleeves here, or the collar, and everything, the texture all around. Beautiful, beautiful textures here. Continuing on, White Solitude with another super painterly AI artwork. I mean, look at the brushwork here, right in there. And even here, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, White Solitude is able to get those textures out like almost like nobody can. I mean, look at there, like over here. I mean, it's just like rough painting. It's amazing, amazing. I mean, and then here is some real quote unquote physical work. Let's call it physical work. Of course, the artist walk with a little bit of humor here, graffiti. So I assume that's maybe, I don't know if that's John Travolta or some, Broadway show. It looks like it's referencing graffiti. Awesome work with the light coming up and everything. Just awesome as usual. I follow Walk, by the way. That's a Twitter glitch. That is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me once again. And do join us tomorrow with Kay Blaine on the Twitter Spaces. That is posted in my feed. Until next time, take care.